Svaki čovjek voli, ništa drugo ne postoji. Kad voli manje boli i sve je lakše. Kad boli to što voli onda lomi čaše. Znam te i znaš me, svako je lomio, izgubio i dobio i suze prolio, patio. Moraš probat da bi shvatio, nemaš kupit tu školu, pare nisu toliko bitne ako si me pratio. Svaki čovjek jedan film, pogledao sam svoj pola drama, sad bi chill. Glavni lik je patio dosta, kako ne bi scenarije Balkan bez nade i posla. Sad bi malo humora i smijeha za jebanci u boji. Dosadna je ova crno-bijela tehnika, zovi producenta, fali šminka i perika. Ideja je supera, budžet tanak, jebi ga.
Svaki čovjek je hotel, svaki put kada odeš, tuga natoči koktel na duplo dno. Svaki čovjek je bordel, mutne vrate te vode, amor me strijelo probode, idemo ponovo.
I pozdrav još jednom iz Srebrenice. Perspektiva je, ja mislim, drugi ili možda čak i treći put ovde, ali danas je posebna prilika jer su naši sagovornici ljudi iz raznih zemalja, što se do sada u našoj emisiji nije dogodilo. A imamo i posebnog gosta, to je dr. James Riding, profesor na Univerzitetu Newcastle, istraživač geografije konflikta i vođa projekta Subjektivni atlas Bosne i Hercegovine. Zajedno s ovim mladim ljudima i profesorom Ridingom probat ćemo da dokučimo kako izgleda sadašnjost, kako razumemo prošlost i imali zajedničke budućnosti. Od sad pa nadalje, emisija teče na engleskom, pa da vidimo. So, welcome once again. Thank you for being here. Hello to you too, James.
Hello.
So let's talk about responsibility. I mean, I'm from Serbia and it's really important to me for obvious reasons. So, after the wars, after all the horrible things, who's to blame? The entire nations or individuals in command, and where's the line between those?
For children and grandchildren to be responsible for something that maybe a family member did 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I don't think that's possible, and I also don't think it's fair. But I do think that everyone has a responsibility to educate themselves and make sure that what happened before doesn't happen again. So in that sense, I would say everyone is responsible to learn about the past and to make sure it doesn't happen again, if it was a bad past.
I'm from Srebrenici, I'm a local. I lived here all my life. And when it comes to that question, who is responsible, I feel like I should definitely say something. So I feel like it is pretty clear that whoever killed, whoever raped, whoever tortured, whoever did anything, whoever was involved in the genocide is to blame. And we here in Srebrenica, we have taxi drivers who literally burned people alive. We have neighbors who smile at our faces, but actually they were included in the genocide. They are the ones who celebrate genocide. They are the ones who deny genocide. And we live with those people every day. So it is pretty clear that even though, of course, there are people who actually committed genocide, they're to blame. There are also people who are still supporting the whole idea of the genocide and denying genocide. And those people are, in my opinion, to blame as well, and even more so, because they are the people who are continuing the idea of the whole idea of killing people, of just like of erasing everybody is okay. And I feel like those people are even more to blame because they're teaching their children, they're teaching new generations that whole concept, which is of course so wrong. It's horrible. It is the concept that actually started the genocide. It is the concept that is responsible for all those graves at Potocari and all those graves in all Bosnia. So I feel like people who are spreading that idea and supporting that and denying genocide are as well the ones that we should blame.
I came to Bosnia when I was 19 years old for volunteer service and then decided to do my bachelor studies in international relations and diplomacy at the University of Sarajevo because I did not want to leave this country after 1 year. I think you cannot put it on entire countries, because countries are made out of so many people. They might not all be good, they might not all be without responsibility, but I think we cannot generalize that too much. But we still have to also recognize how much people also look away. They know that their country is doing something bad and they're deciding that it's easier to ignore it because it doesn't have to do with them, because they are not suffering under it. And I think that makes it very dangerous. And I don't think that you can, like for any conflict, say specifically one country is exclusively responsible. But the political leadership and the people who support that political leadership are the people who are executing crimes, the people who are implementing these very, very wrong decisions. They are responsible and they have to be held responsible. Everyone who denies that these crimes happened, they are responsible as well for upholding these crimes. Everyone who glorifies those crimes is responsible for those crimes. So it is, in the end, a lot of people, and not everyone will be held responsible, not everyone can be held responsible, but it's still a shared responsibility among the people who also did not say anything while they knew that it happened.
In the war that struck Yugoslavia, and which happened in numerous ex-Yugoslav countries, the problem is, in my opinion, that there were very many paramilitary groups, very many specific groups which didn't have direct links to the political branches or any recognized military in that area. So it was very difficult to actually connect those two. And I think that the way that we should observe it, in my opinion, is that each nation, each ethnicity in ex-Yugoslavia should step up and say, okay, the military group which my ethnicity belongs to, atrocities were committed. The court in Hague did prove that. In some smaller towns and villages, it's almost a public secret which man did what thing and so on. And I think that neither group and neither ethnicity should pretend that some things that don't happen, or try to deny them, or try to make them less important by saying that it was many years ago and it was under pressure or whatever. So I think that after so many years, I think the situation should start heading a better way.
The more we educate ourselves, the more we spread the word of just better understanding and education, I feel like it's gonna get better, as Mirza said, and we should definitely stay positive, but we should not just turn a blind eye to those things, especially we here in Srebrenica who usually do that, because it's like he's your neighbor, he's your schoolmate, he's your teacher. So you're just gonna ignore that. Well, I'm here to say that I'm not gonna ignore that, and that I'm gonna always raise my voice, which I have done in school, and I've got into trouble many times because of that, because that's our system that clearly needs to change. So whatever I can do to make a change and to make things better, I'm gonna do.
A person from ex-Yugoslavia, it's hard to be objective, but a person who is a foreigner can hardly understand the norms and the mentality and the values which people here hold. So you can never have both of those two things. But I think, like, in my opinion, as somebody who has a degree in political sciences, I think that progress is small, but I think that it's slowly heading in the right direction, and it shouldn't take this long. In my opinion, after almost 30 years, we should be miles ahead of where we are right now. In every case example of other countries and other conflicts, we're falling behind greatly. And it's very sad to picture that we're gonna need a shift of generation until we actually come to a point where people say, hey, now it's better, now we have finally achieved what people call peace.
It's just too depressing and too impossible to keep fighting if we already go into these discussions and potential solidarities with the notion of you are of this nationality, hence you are that, because identities are fluid, and we had so many absolutely beautiful protests across Bosnia, but then across Serbia as well. There were anti-war that didn't want all of this. But on the other hand, we all are born into systems and structures, and some profit a lot from the damage of the Bosnian War. And even though they are, quote unquote, not guilty, they are responsible to undo the systems of which they profit, the same way that all of us are born into a particular class and a particular gender, into so many different categories of identity, and we all need to just do better and dismantle that so we truly can be equal and stand in solidarity.
In Germany, in German media, the people always sometimes say the Bosnian War was a civil war. And that has the notion of this, it also has this orientalizing motion that on the Balkans there are like crazy people that just one day decided to like kill each other because they hate each other. And then in Bosnia I hear that the people are very strongly demanding to say this was an aggression against a sovereign state. Now these discussions, I see them in the Ukraine war, where people are very much talking about aggressor and attacked like party, and it is very much more clear than it was in the Yugoslav wars, and the notion to help with weapons and to support Ukraine are very stronger than they were in Bosnia, because in Bosnia you always had this notion that it is like a spontaneous civil war and everybody is to blame. And as I said, on every side there has been crimes committed, but I still feel like there are differences in the way how systematic they were and how organized from the top state, or if it were like militias, or I still don't know. I wouldn't like. I want to be objective. I'm from a Bosniak family. I don't want to say like the Armija BiH did nothing wrong, but I still feel like they were the most multi-ethnic army that at least were like people. There were people in there who thought they fight for a multi-ethnic Bosnia.
I think that particularly within the context of the Balkans, where we have these ethnic myths and eternal hatred and all of that orientalizing, balkanizing discourse, it's important to really contextualize groupism. To me, it would be utterly impossible to continue this fight if I were to to make like all Serbs Chetnici. To me, it's like all of those who have committed those war crimes are Chetnici, and all those who uphold them and who pray for another fall of Srebrenica, who want another war, who do all of the warmongering, who deny, who have these insane conspiracy theories, they all are responsible, and we have to keep them accountable by all possible means. The same way it would be too sad to think that all Croats are Ustaše, and we all know that there is far too many of them, like one is too many already. And to me, it's really about, and then obviously we have the Bosnian army, about we don't necessarily speak too much because there were horrible crimes. And I think it was last year that this mass grave was found close to Sarajevo, and there was a decision to not go further into that. And that's obviously horrendous because these were innocent victims.
Even if I agree with what the previous people said, every side of this conflict has to look at what people did in their name. It still has to account for something that one side was like in The Hague proven to be like a joint criminal enterprise, and one wasn't. One committed genocide, the other didn't.
Znam te I znaš me, svako je lomio, izgubio I dobio I suze prolio, patio. Moraš probat da bi shvatio, ne možeš kupit tu školu, pare nisu toliko bitne ako si me pratio,
Okay, so James, do you think war is ever really inevitable, like a measure of last resort, or the humankind should know better by now?
I'm quite a hopeful person in that when I go anywhere, I see a person as a person. I don't flatten somebody like a previous speaker just spoke about flattening people. And it's very important to not see people in this way and not see the future as one big catastrophe. It's the same with the war in Bosnia. We read these things as if they're like a single catastrophe that we can think about and narrativize. And it's really important not to imagine that war is inevitable or that humankind is in some way inevitably going to, you know, end up in a huge genocide once more. Because I think it's a very difficult question to answer. It's so impossible to answer. I mean, I cannot answer that because I myself actually have not experienced what a lot of people here have experienced. So how am I, as an academic, from a very privileged background, going to in any way come up with an answer when I haven't experienced what half of these people have? So actually, it would be far better to ask people that have actually experienced the horrors of conflict than someone who, yeah, of course I try to understand and I try to empathize and I try to do anything I can to not be simply an extractive academic that takes stuff away from the region. But the people that can answer those questions best are the mothers of Srebrenica, as people have mentioned here, are people living in Srebrenica, are people from the region, and these brilliant young people who might have some inkling of the horrors of war. Hopefully some of them are not old enough to have experienced the horrors of war, but yeah, I think they will be much better at answering the question about how destructive humankind can be.
I just want to thank everybody for being here, thank everybody for wanting to know about Srebrenica, about genocide, about what happened in Bosnia for people who are here for the first time, not just in Srebrenica, but in Bosnia. And I really want to say that what you're doing is really important, and what you're learning and listening to is really important. And I hope you're going to leave this place with just a wish to spread this message and not like a one-time thing. So, because it doesn't need to be a one-time thing.
A topic that we heard often in these last few days from panelists and also from the locals is that these nationalist narratives, or narratives that tend to produce genocide denial, are often reproduced in like primary socialization in the family, and that there's no proper educational or institutionalized educational system that would be able to correct that or erase that or even be an alternative to that. Would you agree that there's more research needed? If so, how would you approach this? And like the final goal being to maybe counter these narratives and to actually approach this problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's another huge question that I don't have a simple answer to. I mean, one thing you could do is the work that Ismar Poric is doing here, and he's inviting people to get together and to discuss these things. I mean, the school that's in the town of Srebrenica is really important as well. So I would suggest like the only way to do these things is to have children meet and to not have two schools under one roof, to actually have moments where people get together and this way of breaking a cycle, like you say, potentially of having parents who have certain views and then children having the same views is very difficult to break, isn't it? And like you say, while schools teach different curriculum, it's kind of difficult to break that down as well within school structures. So having kind of these non-institutional moments where children can visit places like this, or they can maybe even take part in a workshop where they perhaps produce kind of commonalities. We've seen so much over the past couple of days about not everything is about division. Like there's so much that brings people together here as well.
My question is, I feel like if you really study something like personally, and I want to share it, I'm always not sure how to share it, because I feel like everybody's kind of so tired to hear about another conflict, another war, another genocide, and it's kind of maybe my question is, how do you deal with it to kind of raise awareness and talk in also like with the people in your surrounding, and still, because I think I'm kind of afraid that I will just make them so tired they will just stop thinking about it. So I think especially for us who have no like direct personal connections, how do you deal with it to have like a balance between sharing this topic because it's so important and still kind of respect other people's and their ability to kind of catch up with what happens in the world and happen in the world. I don't know if it's sure, but like this, without making them so tired about, you know, another cruel thing.
Mm. Well, I mean, I think one of the ways to do it is through using arts-based methods or using a different type of methodology. Often when you read academic writing, it's quite bland, nobody wants to read it outside of a few people within that small academic discipline. So producing things like the Subjective Atlas hopefully breaks through between academia and everyday life. People might come across this book in a city in Bosnia, or they might come across it when they're at school if we manage to incorporate it into the school system. So I would say that that's the most important way I would suggest of thinking about this. You can think about it as kind of using multimedia techniques, which is what the post-conflict research tends to do. So I would suggest that the best way to do that is to think beyond writing on a page in an academic journal.
Svaki čovjek je hotel, svaki put kada odeš, tuga natoči koktel na duplo dno.
Do you have any message for people that are living in this region?
The messages from me is, from this group, is to carry on doing exactly what you are doing. You are doing such brilliant things. The message that I have to most people that I meet regularly when I visit the region is that carry on being exactly the same person. Like, I meet so many beautiful people from this place that yeah, just carry on. I mean, carry on fighting the fight against, the issue in many ways is not the Dayton Agreement. The Dayton Agreement are cantons and entities. They're lines on a map. The issue is politicians. You know, the fight is to get politicians to do their jobs properly, not the fight. Yeah, you could dismantle the Dayton Agreement, but plenty of other countries have very complicated political systems. Belgium has a particularly complicated political system. You know, there are peace agreements that have worked and there are peace agreements that haven't worked, but often it is politicians that are the issue. And obviously, the message will be is to keep questioning the people in power.
Okay, so in the end, do you have any message for your peers that are living in this region?
My message would be that it's been so observable during the war and during the conflicts that we acted using a herd mentality. Nobody thought with their own head. People mimicked the action of other people around them. They mimicked terrible atrocities. I don't believe that all of those people are monsters. If those people were capable of having a happy family, of loving their own child, those people are not without empathy. Of course, if I'm not taking off the blame of them, if they did any sort of crime, they must be accounted for it. But what my point is that people should just think critically. They should use their own head. They should observe others around them as their equals. They should put they should put themselves in other people's shoes. If people during the beginning of the 90s still saw each other as equal, still saw each other, doesn't matter even if they had a shift to their own nationalistic mentality, even if they then said we're not Yugoslavs, we're Serbs, we're Croats, we're Bosniaks, we're Slovenians, whatever. If they just had humanity and decency, and if they wanted to feel empathy towards each other, I'm pretty sure the politicians could yell for war 10 times stronger and people would not do it.
One message that I have to the youth is if you can't find an opportunity in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I highly suggest that you create your own opportunity. And this is a piece of advice that I've previously given to many youth in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because many feel as though it is their calling to become a part of the diaspora population and run away from Bosnia to seek better opportunities, better employment, better education. But I really do think that even if you do leave for a certain amount of time to get a better education, I really do think you should come back and firsthand contribute back to your native community and to take one step forward. And then you're not just making one opportunity for yourself, you're making other opportunities for your peers, and you're also taking a step forward in creating a more progressive utopia in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
I completely agree with what everyone was saying, but for me it kind of boils to one thing. We cannot afford to give up, because giving up means the nationalists win, and we cannot let that happen.
That's the punchline for the end. Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much for being here today, James. Thank you. A mi se gledamo za 7 dana u nekom drugom gradu. Do tada pogledajte, posjetite perspektiva.plus i zapratite nas na društvenim mrežama. Gledamo se.
Svaki čovjek jedna knjiga, ja bi bio slikovnica da me nije briga. Život bi trebao biti igra, ali piše romane, zato uživaj dok pišeš i ne gledaj sa strane.
Svaki čovjek je hotel, svaki put kada odeš, tuga natoči koktel na duplo dno. Svaki čovjek je bordel, mutne vrate te vode, amor me strijelo probode, idemo ponovo.